Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector. And as much as I love modern games, there's something that modern games will never have, in my opinion. And I think it's the nostalgia factor. I don't know if this generation has the same attention span as generations from, 30, 20, even 10 years ago. These days, because we live in an age where information is delivered the same way water is delivered from a fire hose, there's so much coming at you all at once, all the time, that this generation doesn't get an opportunity to sit with something long enough for it to create lasting memories. And it's not just with video games, it's with music, it's with movies, it's with a lot of things. We become enamored by something like, for a week, maybe a few days, and then once it's over, it's gone, out of sight, out of mind, and we're not really referencing those things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, we still, once in a blue moon, have moments in pop culture where we have an event that is memorable and it kind of marks the era and it's just a time to be alive and it's something that people will remember for a long time. But it really takes something cataclysmic for it to have that type of effect. A good example would be the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. Not Like Us is probably a song that will mark the 2020s. I think even 15 to 20 years from now, people will look back and remember 2024 as the year that Kendrick ultimately demolished Drake. And the thing of that is that not only was the song monumental, it was an occurrence that occurred between two generational artists. So unless we're talking about something that's at that level, I mean, supernova, like power levels beyond the power scales, unless you're dealing with something like that, most moments that happen in pop culture just don't stick like that. And I think the same thing happens in video games. It takes a very, very monumental video game, something extremely potent and powerful, I think, I think, a game would have to be at a certain level for it to leave a lasting impression on an entire generation. And we don't see that many games like that, I feel like, today. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not to say that there aren't any games, much like the Drake and Kendrick analogy. We do have games that I think have marked time or marked a certain period in time for a lot of individuals. I would say the most standout game to me for this generation is probably like a Fortnite. And when I say standout, right, I'm talking about these are games that not only the gaming community views as a standout or memorable title, but I'm talking about games that the general public, someone who's not a gamer, would still know about and still reference when it comes to video games. Like, for instance, a lot of people that never grew up with a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis still know who Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog is, but they might not know who Rocket Knight Adventure is. They don't know Rocket Knight, but I can guarantee you they know who Super Mario is and they know who Sonic the Hedgehog is. And they probably never played a video game in their life, but it's those characters were so iconic and they were so nostalgic that they left a lasting impression on an entire generation. And I don't know if we're getting characters or if we're seeing characters delivered to us that are having that level of an impact on us today. Now, Astrobot is a game that I picked up for the PlayStation 5 because I think it won Game of the Year. It's a very popular game. It was very much loved. A lot of people talked about it and praised it and lauded it. But even as great as Astrobot is, Astrobot will never reach the level of a Mario or a Sonic or a Zelda or any of the characters from, say, like Final Fantasy. We don't get characters, or we haven't seen anything like that. I want to say with this generation. And why is that? Why is that? To me, the reason for that is because, like I said before, this is a generation that does not get the opportunity to sit with something long enough for it to stick with them. Back in the day, when you wanted to go and buy an album, there wasn't as many informational distractions. You didn't have the internet, you didn't have streaming, you didn't have all of these other outlets to access and consume information and content. And so when you bought something as simple as a CD or a cassette tape, you really sat with that piece of content and you consumed it and consumed it and consumed it some more. And you had an opportunity to sit with it so long that those songs became the soundtrack to your life, or they became a soundtrack to a season of your life. But that only happened because you were able to sit with it for a long enough period of time. And it's the same thing with video games. If your mom bought you a video game for the Sega Genesis or for the Super Nintendo, you were able to sit with that video game and you didn't have any other distractions. You didn't have YouTube. Maybe you went outside and you did some things. Maybe you had MTV or you watched some TV, but you didn't have all these other distractions pulling you away from that main form of content that you were consuming in video games. And I think it's because of that we are able to think back to a game and remember a time in our lives. Like most collectors who collect on nostalgia or think about nostalgia or have a lot of nostalgia towards video games, when they think about a particular video game, they're not just remembering one day when they played that video game. No, they're remembering a summer with that game. They're remembering a fall. They're remembering a Christmas. They're remembering a school year. It was my senior year in high school. It was my freshman year in junior high. It was whatever season they were in. That's the season that they use when referencing some of those video games. And it's because they were able to sit with that for a long period of time. Now, do I think nostalgia is completely gone from video gaming? No. Man, 30 years from now, I'll be an old man. And who knows what a young person that'll be, who knows what a 25-year-old in 2050, who knows what that young person will be nostalgic for? Who knows what things they'll remember from 2030 and from 2031? Who knows what memories they'll draw from? But I would bet that they'll probably have even more information coming their way. They'll have even more devices and more gadgets, and it'll be easier to flood their minds and flood their thought processes with even more information and with more imagery and more content, because content is just expanding. It's growing. Every day you see a new podcast. Every day you see a new YouTuber. Every day you see someone else that's really fighting for your eyes. They're fighting for your attention, because we live in a day and age where attention is a form of economy, right? Attention, dollars and cents are tied to how much attention you can garner from the general public. And I think because of this is why we have so much that's thrown at us. And so the type of nostalgia that someone in their 40s or 50s might feel today, or even in their 30s might feel today, I don't know if my daughters will have that same level of nostalgia attached to any form of media, not just video games, but movies, music, pop culture. Who knows, right? Who knows if they'll even have the opportunity to sit with a piece of content long enough for them to blend it into their everyday lives. And I think that's one of the reasons why modern gaming just won't have that same nostalgia factor as it did back in the day. But again, I could be dead wrong, and I could be completely off here. You guys let me know down in the comments if you think that's true or not, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.